can do our official welcome now that we have handled all of our technology issues. Okay. Welcome everyone to Indie Authors Live. This is the monthly show featuring self-published authors of nonfiction books, and we talk definitely about the books, obviously, but also a little bit about their self-publishing journey, because everyone's journey is different. Everyone's level of learning is different as well in terms of how they get to become an author. And I'm your host, Taiia Smart Young, and I am here with my first guest of 2020, the fabulous, the beautiful, the talented Raquel C.D. Shelton. And she is the author of Woosah, y'all. And Woosah it's called, let me get the title right, Woosah, a survival guide for women of color working in corporate. And just so you know, this is not only for women who work in corporate. If you work in fashion, tech, government, STEM, this is for you. This is for you if you are a woman of color who's trying to ascend. Maybe you are trying to get a promotion. Maybe you are dealing with some unconscious bias in the workplace, maybe some favoritism. We've all been there. So Raquel is here to drop some jewels on you guys, answer some questions about the book. And before we get into it, let me just let everyone know. So we are recording through Zoom. And so there'll be a little bit of a lag in terms of us responding to the questions and comments, but don't let that stop you. Give us hearts, give us love when you hear something that you like. Chime in when you hear something that you don't like that story is crazy, because Raquel has a couple of crazy stories. And do us a favor, share this broadcast, because we want more people to know about Raquel's book. We want them to go to Amazon. We want them to buy, leave reviews, etc. And we want more people who are liking the Year Right with Taiia Smart Young Facebook page. So you'll have your chance to do that, which is right now. Okay. So we'll take questions at the very end, and I'll remind Raquel that we're going to do that. And she's going to also announce the winner of the prize. So you're either doing a book or merchandise, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a surprise. So the winner will know.
Oh, okay. So, and I'm not the winner? Okay. Let me get it together.
You got it.
Okay, so let's get into this, Raquel. So first of all, when I saw the title Woosah, I automatically thought of Bad Boys, and that scene in Bad Boys when Martin is doing like this and he's talking to his superior and he's like, you gotta woosah, you gotta calm down, you gotta woosah. I'm assuming you took it from there, and what is your definition of woosah?
That is such a great question. Here, let's see. Is this a split screen?
Yes.
Okay, because on the live, I think I see you.
You should see the both of us. On the Zoom recording, I see the both of us. So you can, when I'm talking, you should probably see me, and then when you're talking, you should see you.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Okay.
You know what's funny? No, I did not think of Bad Boys. I just always heard the title Woosah. I've been very familiar with it. And for me, Woosah essentially speaks to resetting. So whether you are resetting at your core, whether you are like, I need a minute, and someone's got on your last nerves or under your skin, or it's a moment to gather yourself. So that's what Woosah essentially means, is to reset.
Okay, I like it. And we all need a chance to reset. I mean, some of the experiences that you've had in the book, and you also interview 12 other women. So you take some of their stories and experiences, and we'll get into that. But the phrase playing the game has popped up a lot in the book when I was reading it. And you even mentioned that there was a point where you saw the handwriting was on the wall, that it was time to leave your job, and that you were kind of tired of playing the game. So my question is, for women of color, should we be playing this game? Can we win it? Can we excel at this game and still be ourselves, still be authentic? What do you think?
You know, for me, I think I'm at the point of burnout personally, to where I'm not really interested in playing the game, but there are levels to playing the game. So when you think of playing the game, the title is essentially speaking to office politics. The unwritten rules is this is what we do here, but it's not written in policy anywhere, nowhere to be found. So that is playing the game. Whether the people that play the game, you get a decision and a say in the boss's decision. You know, you get the extra perks and things of that sort. So I think there's levels of playing the game. Now, of course, you want to be smart with like networking, or if there's a corporate function and your boss is asking you to come because he or she may want to introduce you to someone, then that you wait there. But when it comes to just brown nosing, kissing butt, doing the things and not saying no and overtaking to get the boss's approval, I think that's where you draw the line. Because think about it like this. You don't have to play the game. You're not there to play the game. It's play in the sandbox. It's not mandatory. However, use your discretion with it, because if you do all this playing the game, you could still get fired. You know what I mean? Like they could downsize, or they could, hey, after 15 years, you've been great, but we don't necessarily need you anymore. So you can still get hit with one of those whether you play the game or not. So
Yeah.
it's totally, it's at your discretion, but I am not for sitting silent for anything that contradicts with your core, your
Okay.
personal statement and who you are.
Okay. So take, for instance, because you and I had been texting about this a little bit. I thought of Gabrielle Union and what happens with her position on the talent show. What is it? You Got Talent? Is that the show?
Got Talent.
Right. And so she wasn't silent. So about, I guess, those how the structure worked, because I heard, and I'm not sure if this was true or not, that there were some comments about she changes her hair too much. She was a little too outspoken. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, they flat out, and actually what's interesting, I just did the Jackie Reed show a couple of days ago, and we specifically opened with Gabrielle Union.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a gentle reminder that if Gabrielle Union, who's worth $20 million plus can get it, little old Taiia working at McDonald's corporate can get it too. So there's no respected person. Yeah, she essentially got fired for speaking up and going to HR, doing what she was supposed to do. She heard comments like her hair's too black, just cattiness, messy office politics and toxic environment. She spoke up about it. Like, what are we supposed to do other than go to HR, who is supposed to, have our best interests and to make sure that we're in a comfortable climate where we can show up and be our best selves. She did the right thing and still got fired. So that just solidifies my point. If you don't necessarily have to play the game and something like that, that's why I said it's give or take. If that compromises your core and you're flat out being disrespected, for me, no. And for you, no as well. The bittersweet struggle with that is Gabby had a seat at the table, and it takes people like her to speak up, because now she's imploded this national dialogue that
Right.
that has to happen. And not only has she imploded or pushed this dialogue, now we're putting people on notice. So the next person that gets hired or someone else is in that position, they're likely less inclined to think they could get away with that type of behavior and comments because it's disgusting, flagrant, and it's not acceptable.
Absolutely. And I think that there was on your social media, on your Instagram, you had, I think there was a post about staying silent, and how I think this was a perfect example, because if she had stayed silent, then we would have no clue about what was going on, and we wouldn't have this conversation. And then we wouldn't know that somebody like Gabrielle Union, of her her A-list stature, she's dealing with the same things that, like you said, that us regular schmegular folks that we're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
She was dealing with a little bit of a toxic work environment. And in Woosah, you talk about there's an opportunity for managers and directors to check it and correct it. Can you give 2 examples of maybe something you've seen where it was checked and corrected, or maybe it wasn't? What's some examples of a toxic work environment?
So toxicity, in my opinion, that's anything that is compromising to your well-being, your health, be it physical or mental, emotional. I think everyone has got to that point at some job where you are like doing like this, walking to the parking lot, or you're saying a prayer, or you're like, oh, I gotta go to see these today. And once you've reached that point, then it says something about it. There's something there beyond the work that makes you feel uncomfortable. So toxicity comes in multiple forms, whether it is that office gossip, whether it is being picked over or not selected to have different projects and things of that sort, whether it's poor management. It comes in a lot of forms. So once you kind of see that toxicity, you have either got to speak up, do what's best for you. In some severe cases, it may be time for you to go on LinkedIn.com and start getting your resume together. But toxicity, it kills. It's like cancer. it eats away, and no one wants to come to work. And it's no way for an employee to be productive and proud and give their best foot forward in a toxic environment.
I shared it with my with the folks on my email list. I shared with them a story about when a former employer of mine, who I'll call clueless, saw a picture of my son, asked to see a picture of my son. I was newly employed at this place. Said, "Oh, can I see a picture of your son?" I showed the picture. My son had like a curly puff on the top of his head, and his comment was, "Oh, look at little buckwheat." And that was like,
See,
that was just, I was so shocked by that comment because like, I went through all the emotions. One, not wanting to lose my job, because the first thing you want to do is kind of like freak out and lose your mind. But you're like, Woosah, I'm in a professional setting. This is not what I do. I have to take a beat. But luckily someone jumped in, because I think she saw my face, and she was like, she let the person know that this is not cool. It's not okay. And so I was grateful in that moment that that person had my back and gave me that little bit of breathing room to jump in for me and know that, she needed a minute to compose herself, and that this wasn't okay. So there are a couple of examples. Were you going to say something?
No, I talk about that as well. I think that's the beauty in having a community, and most importantly, advocates. When you have someone that can advocate for you and speak on your behalf, because a lot of times, like you said, you were shocked. A lot of people don't really know what to do when they're hit with something, or it hits them later, and it's like, wait a minute, did that just happen? And then you find yourself trying to figure out how you're going to address it the next day, or then it gets lost. So I love the beauty, and you had someone that was advocating for you.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, well, I don't want to give it away, and I want everyone to get the book, because there is a crazy example in the book of someone who took office gossip just way too far. And for me, I thought, like, office gossip, it happens everywhere. It's a little harmless tea, maybe her dress was too tight, maybe somebody's sleeping with someone else, just a little harmless office gossip. We're whispering, we're talking. But this example in the book was like somebody just went like, I mean, I think we all kind of Google people and want to see who we're working with and who we're dealing with. But this person took it too far. I can't give you guys the information. You got to go and get Woosah to find the extremes that this person went to. I could not believe that this person had the lady balls to even do what they did. But you said in Woosah that gossip distorts perceptions and divides and destroys. Can you talk a little bit about your observations about this?
Yes, absolutely. And look at you, bookworm.
I read.
Okay, I'm here for it. It does distort perception, and it destroys, because it's something that you may think is simply harmless, and it's your perspective, or it's your speculation that, oh, I saw Taiia and Michael walk into the car together. You put that bug in someone else's ear, and then before you know it, they're having a whole affair, and then his wife is upset. And then honestly, management, once they hear that information, they're human too. So you want to put in the human factor of biases. And once they hear something, then it's easy for them to perceive or see that person through that lens of the gossip that they heard. And most importantly, if it's just not true, it's disgusting, and it affects people's morale, because they're going to be treated differently. There's no way you can hear something very scandalous about an individual and then consciously just like keep treating them like nothing ever happened,
right?
Or you're not side-eyeing them, or you're not looking over their shoulder. You know what I mean? So it's totally disgusting. And I even talk about the importance of getting in front of your own narrative. Like, you have got to correct stuff, whether it's something simple as, I had one woman that was big on, oh, Raquel always has all the guys come see her at her desk. Everyone stops by.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah. Listen, as innocent and small as that may seem, no, these are old coworkers, and not that I have to explain that, but let me correct you and stop you right there in the presence of everyone else.
Right.
That you were creating this narrative about me that's not fair. And a lot of times it's intentional as well. You'd be surprised. People are all about throwing others under the bus in efforts to make themselves stand out.
Yes. And the thing is that sometimes the remark may seem like it's just a joke, but it really is. Sometimes I feel like there's a lot of truth when people say that, or there's some level of jealousy. Like, oh, why are you paying attention to the fact that gentlemen may come by my desk or may say hello or whatever? So yeah, we definitely, like, now for me, I definitely have a different perception of office gossip thanks to these examples in Woosah. So diversity and inclusion, those are like the buzzwords right now. Everyone's talking about it. And I love that you use the quote by Verna Myers, and she says, diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. And so the thing is that it's not just okay to say, okay, well, we have a Latina on staff, or we have an Asian person on staff, if we're not utilizing their experiences in these meetings as we go forth and create these campaigns, and then you find out you got to apologize because you don't put Sambo on, right, on the bag, or what's the craziness that's going on right now is like,
remember at H&M where the thing
exactly,
with the pig? So you have these people that are on your team, but no one has a say because they're struggling with trusting their judgment. It's like, yo, I have very creative ideas. My unique background and perspectives has equipped me to give you a different side that you may not have considered. So, yep, that's exactly what that difference is. Just saying you have a Latina on the team, or for the sake of photos, you have a couple sprinkled in here and there, but let's actually utilize them. Yeah, let's let them lead a couple of these meetings. Let's let them create some of their content that they would like to introduce to the team.
Because the first thing that I think all of us think when we see some kind of flagrant foul like that is, oh, you don't have no people of color in your boardroom, in that leadership meeting, in that marketing meeting, because how did that fly? How did that even happen? I loved, this isn't exactly the same kind of situation, but maybe it is, when Beyonce left one of the sneaker meetings because she was like, well, where are the black folk? Where are the people that look like me in these meetings? And I think she took a really important stance in terms of looking at diversity and inclusion. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on in terms of like unconscious bias? Like, is that some of the blame for why, women don't get promoted? There was a great example you had in the book about how sometimes someone leaves a position, a woman may step in and she's interim and she's doing the thing, she's killing it, she's 3 months in the position, she sees the position is now open, and so she's like, yeah, let me throw my hat in it, this is more money, a better title. She doesn't get the position, but now she has to train the person who now is been hired for the position. Is that unconscious bias at play? What are your thoughts?
I think sometimes that is very flagrant. And just to really go back to that point, you made a really good point, how you mentioned, darn it, I lost it. Well, I think that was awesome that Beyonce left, but there was another point where I think it can kind of get misconstrued with, it'll come back to me.
Okay.
But unconscious biases, yes, a lot of those times, those are built just based off your unique background, how you see things, and managers have to take a moment and really slow down their hire process to make sure all the filters, do I have a lot of these types of people here? What am I missing? Does this person remind me of someone else, whether it's how they sound, how they look? And if they remind you of someone else that you may have had a negative experience with, then more than likely you're going to have an unconscious bias that seeps in, that prevents you from moving forward with that candidate. So unconscious biases, yes, that is, it happens all the time. And it's very important for management to just take a moment, involve other people in on the hire process, really kind of check and assess what's needed in the role.
Okay. You asked readers in the book, I love this activity. So you guys, there are a couple of things that I love about the book. Of course, the examples, the activities, and then there are the affirmations. So you have to get Woosah and check out these affirmations. But the activity I'm speaking about right now has to do with giving your younger self career advice. So we always see this activity of, oh, what would I tell my younger self? And it's kind of general. But in terms of career, what would you tell 25-year-old Raquel? How would she benefit from your wisdom? What would you tell her?
Man, 25-year-old you, listen, honey, you are talented. Stop allowing someone else's position or displeasure in their personal life kind of spill over into you questioning your abilities. You've got this, and you have always had it. And I think that is key advice for pretty much everyone out there. Whatever you would tell your 25-year-old self, it is applicable right now, right today. I mean, we grow, through skill sets, we grow through time and all of that stuff, but there's still barriers that, we all have our own things that we're kind of dealing with and navigating through. But the same advice you would give to the 25-year-old you have got to give it to yourself today. So that's exactly what I would tell her. Stop questioning yourself. You got it, baby girl. And you always have. And you always will, because you know whose you are and who you are.
Absolutely. I love that. So let's segue a little bit to talk about your self-publishing journey, because how you and I met was through Instagram. You sent me a DM, slid in those DMs. It was good. And I was like, the first thing that got me before I even read your message was the cover of your book. And I was like, this illustration is amazing. It's beautiful. And so it was hard to ignore. I felt like it completely sold what the book is about. And I was like, is this what she looks like? Because if this is what she looks like, it's even better. We got the little nosy folks looking over the cubicle. You got the person with the cell phone. Who came up with the idea for the book cover, and how did you find your designer?
I came up with the idea for the book cover when I thought of, and what's so funny, so this is my third book, and this is a completely different lane than the lanes that I typically frequent in. The other books are more memoir, but I do still have a trend. I write from a place of passion. And at the time, I just fired my corporate employer, and I chunked the deuces. I finally kind of reached my moment of, okay, I've had enough. And I went home like, hey, what do I do when I'm kind of processing, decompressing? I write. And so I thought of the title Woosah, and I jokingly was like, the survival guide for women of color. And when I think of Woosah, I think of someone that's just kind of meditating in a peaceful Zen space. And so I just kind of was looking up images, and then I started taking pictures in the same position. So that is definitely me. And the artist did a phenomenal job.
Yes.
A phenomenal job. She looks like me. And the cover is a reflection of some of my personal stories and the things that I kind of navigated through. But when I think of corporate America, which is not predominantly people of color, that cover it speaks to it to a T. You're under the radar, under the microscope. The woman has a cell phone in her hand. We think about Black people that are always in the news, and people of color that are constantly in the news for having the police call on them for nothing, for just living or just breathing, whatever the case may be. So I wanted to illustrate what was currently happening in my environment, but also that speaks to a lens visually, aesthetically, for what a lot of Black women of color, specifically Black women, speaking from my experience, have experienced. The artist is this phenomenal woman out of Philadelphia. I used to freelance for another graphic artist. He put me in touch with someone. I kind of dreamed up what I was thinking. I kept sending her Google images of, okay, I want people looking over a cube like this. And can you put this on the cup? I want the cup spilled over. So we just kind of kept going back and forth for a couple of months, and we made it work. So thank you for checking your DMs. Thank you for, So
Absolutely. No, a lot of good stuff happens in my DMs. It's like, I get the, couple date requests. But the majority, I love that my DMs are about business, about questions. And then I get to connect with people like you, because we've been on the phone at this point. We have texted each other. So like, we're cool. We've gone way beyond just like, being Instagram cool. So you mentioned already that this isn't your first published book. This is actually your third. So what was different, either easier or harder this time around?
Man, I've been trying to really assess that. This process has been financially it's been expensive, but well worth it. I am all about implementing change. So when I think about the first time I did a Kickstarter, and I successfully crowdfunded over $9,000 in less than about 8 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful. Shout out to everyone that has supported Dreams Breathe in Texas and that was a part of that movement. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. So I've been really trying to assess which has been like the most, I think this time around I've had more knowledge because I've done it before, of course, and really just put in more time and effort. And then technology has advanced a bit, social media, all these different platforms. So the process has been, I forgot the question. Forgive me.
I was saying in terms of easier or harder, what were some of the things that you noticed this time around? So
I guess
you didn't do a Kickstarter this time around. So
no, it's
you
been
definitely
that,
you
that's the
definitely came
muscle.
out of pocket. What was your most expensive piece of the puzzle? Because I know printing is definitely expensive.
Yes, printing can be expensive. It's a tie between, I also did some promotional videos,
Mhm.
tons of bookmarks, banners, backdrops, a lot of, so there's been like maybe between the cover and the marketing video, the animated explainer video that I got that
Yeah,
done.
that video is pretty. That video is pretty high. I can tell you spent a piece of change on that, but well worth it. I think to promote the book. The thing that I think any author finds out, traditional or self-published, is that really it's like the writing is the smallest part of it. If you want to sell the book, you got to really focus on that marketing. And so every
Absolutely.
time I would see a post of yours on Instagram, it was always something that was great and interactive, or it was a post that got people talking. Because when I would repost, so, I think it was like the first one. It may have, no, it wasn't the one about toxicity. I can't remember what the first one I reposted was, but there were so many comments and so many DMs about it that women were just like, oh, I was talking about this at work. And so
Yeah.
kudos to you for making sure that you're continuously talking about Woosah. Now, how long did it take you to write the first draft? And how many drafts did you do?
I probably did 2 drafts.
Okay.
And again, it was fresh off the press. I just fired my employer. And so I had time. And the content, I also keep a log, I keep a journal. So the content was practically there, just different experiences, kind of thinking through. So 2 drafts. The first draft, if that first one would have gotten printed, I probably would have had a couple of lawsuits. Now, mind you, I do.
We're like,
Right. I do want to give this caveat that it is not at all. They don't even deserve, that environment doesn't deserve that much credit. It is a composition of my experiences exiting college, because I think it's very important, and which is part of the necessity of Woosah for those young individuals that's transitioning out of college, that's getting into the corporate world. They have no clue of what they're about to get into. And
right.
speaking of the 25-year-old me, had I had some type of guide or manual readily available, that would have curved a lot of the drama and things of that sort. So it's a compilation of everything leading from internships all the way until you get to this point. So I've been having this Woosah conversation for maybe about 10 or 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that first draft wouldn't have been any good. So 2 drafts, yeah, and it probably took, with the editor, I had a couple of rewrites. I had to fire and hire different editors. So maybe a solid 4 months. And
Okay.
that's only because just the reread and rewriting, I struggle. I'm a surrendering perfectionist. So
Gotta let it go.
gotta let it
Because
go. Let go.
everything can always be better. At some point, you have to pull the trigger and let it go. Well, you piqued my curiosity because I'm an editor. And so you said you had to fire and hire some editors. You have to find the right editor that works with you, gets your voice. I'm really big on voice. I have a very strong voice when I'm writing, whether I'm being funny or romantic or whatever. And if they're editing me and they don't get that voice and they take that out, that's painful. We got problems. So what happened with your editor?
That's a good point. And yeah, and it's costly. It's costly.
Oh
The
yeah.
first one, I interviewed her, but I didn't do I didn't do a great job vetting. And this time around, I really wanted to hire people of color. I have an amazing editor who's edited the other books, and I love her to death. But I really wanted to hire all people of color on this project specifically. And the first editor was like ooh, I don't know if she's watching. We just wasn't a good fit. Let
Right.
me say that. But more so, she was in the medical field, right? But
Hmm.
she's still a great blogger, strong with the content. I suck at grammar. Like, let me just say that. And I don't even consider myself an awesome writer, but I'm a strong storyteller. I'm a great storyteller. And she was from the medical field, and she didn't really get my voice. She was changing slangs, so it was just kind of some back and forth. And then the other person was just reckless. It was too many grammar errors. And then I found a godsend in Philly, another Philly person. And so she
Philly
just,
came through strong.
they did, yes. And so yeah, that was some of the hiccups. So I definitely encourage people to make sure you spend a little bit more time through the vetting process because it gets costly. And I overpaid her, and I tip people very well. I
Mhm.
had the audacity to tip her partially, and then I was reading through and I'm like, give me my money back. But I just, we let it go.
Right, you let it go. Okay, well, that's a word to the wise for everyone. Definitely, I encourage people to vet whatever vendors that they're working with. I'm dealing with something with a designer right now, and I'm just like, really? Um, so, last question in terms of self-publishing. A lot of folks who want to self-publish, they contact me because that's what I do. I work with folks who want to self-publish nonfiction books, and I help them get their idea together and solidify it. So the first thing they say is, I don't know where to start. I have this idea, but I don't know where to start. Are you the kinds of writer that starts with an outline, or can you fly by the seat of your pants, you just jump in like day two, we're gonna write chapter 5? What's your process?
I am such a creative, and my undergrad degree is in like film, radio, TV, film. So I could sit here and visualize a whole scene, and then I just may start writing that scene. And then I may go back. I do some chronological order, or I just write. I write. I don't really get caught up in the outlines. I think the first book I was trying to do it the proper way, but as a creative, I think some of the proper way or whatever, and there's really no proper way, it can stifle your creativity.
It
Are you
can.
cringing? Wait, are you
I, I,
cringing? Is it a
I know
proper
that
way?
it can. And the thing is, I always tell people, don't think of the outline from school.
Right.
I have like some really curated documents that I put together because I know people hate outlines. But I promise you, it's like a GPS
You're
because
right. You're
when
right. You're right.
when you leave your house and you're going somewhere you don't know where you're going, and it's in 2 states away, you put that little address in the GPS and you're going. And maybe along the way, a faster route to get to, the highway or something like that. And that's great. But you need that little plan on how you're going to get there, because otherwise, my biggest thing is for people who don't consider themselves to be writers or creatives, when they sit down to write, looking at a blank screen every single time is intimidating. And so, of course, it's like, I don't know where to start. So my first thing is to really help them figure out what the idea is and then create, even if it's just something that is rough. I prefer chapter by chapter, but even if we can get something rough together and some summaries, and it's like, okay, you have something here. It's not as chiseled as I want it to be, but let's start and let's work with that, because otherwise, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. No, 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 no. You're right. I think I went to the school piece. Again, as a former filmmaker, we storyboard. So it's still an
Exactly.
outline. Yeah. So it's still an outline. I have an idea, but I don't having the idea, but I may not write in sequence order that idea if one thing is fresher than the other. But I totally agree. Trust Taiia. She is the writing coach expert. Don't listen to me, but you will do what works for you as well. But yeah, I thought of that point. We've digressed so much,
It's okay.
but you mentioned we were talking about the H&M, where how people assume that there was no people of color on the team working with people. Like, how did this outlandish thing happen? A
Hmm.
lot of times, even if there are people of color and it still gets by them, to me, that still speaks to that person shrinking back and the importance of using your voice. Maybe there was some level of intimidation, or when you disrupt, when you speak about playing the game and you're not going along with everyone's thought, like, oh, this is great, let's pull the trigger, and you're the one that kind of sticks out, then you may get the emails, you may be under the microscope, they may clock what time you come in. So then that's that little tweak of playing the game, being silent, but
Hmm.
it's not acceptable, especially when we get to the super flagrant things in the media. So sometimes there are people in the room. They're just silent.
Understood. Understood. Before we forget to announce the winner, please, can you let us know who won? Yeah, are you doing a drum roll? I love it. Okay, do the drum roll. Who won the prize?
Her name is Acree Hunt, and she is from the south side of Atlanta. So
Okay.
she's local here. So I am going to personally sign this decree. I don't know if you're watching, and make sure that you get this in your hands. And I would love to meet you. So we'll make some time, and I'll physically deliver it to you. And then I have something else for you. So Acree Hunt is the winner. Thank you so much for being engaging and just, passing the Woosah message.
Yeah, everyone was tagging other people, making comments. So I really love that people were being interactive about this. So congratulations to, you said Acree, or is it Cree?
Acree
Hunt.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see on my end to tell if we have any questions. I don't think that we do. We have some folks who are watching, but maybe they're too shy to ask questions. Let's see. Just wanted to, I don't see any questions. Can you see on your end?
I see people that are in here, but I see Tiffany Nichols, who said true statement.
Yes.
I don't see any questions, but
I don't see any questions. That's
guys,
okay.
if you have any,
Right,
I know
you guys. Exactly. If you guys have any questions, now is the time before we start to wrap up. There's a little bit of a lag, so put your question in now. We'll give it a few seconds to populate because we are in Zoom. But let me see, did I ask all of my questions? One of the things that I was curious about when I was reading was, how did you said the writing was on the wall. Was there a specific thing that happened that it was like, yeah, no? or did it get to the point where it was like there were multiple things that have happened and then it was like today was enough?
It was multiple things. I actually took a medical leave just dealing with stress. Like the stress was real. I know in my first, and I talk about all this in the book, literally in my first 2 months, I was given the work of 4 different people. And mind you, I transitioned out of the television radio field. I was still in the same in an environment, but I transitioned out of live to like the business side of things. And being on the business side of things it was a different field for me. So I was piled with a lot of work. But yeah, there was just several things. My health was fading, stress, anxiety, feeling disrespected, and just not feeling great about me.
And that's something I think we tend to ignore. I've been where you are in terms of feeling like.
There are a couple of questions.
You have some questions popping up? Okay, we can take those questions, but just.
I'm sorry, I want you to finish your thoughts. So sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I've been there too, where it's like you have this job and on the outside, everything looks great. Because that's how because I'm from the media as well, that's how it can look. It's like, oh, she's going to these parties, she's doing these celebrity stories. One day I got to fly to Miami to meet Mary J. Blige, and we're by the cabana, and then you don't know what the behind the scenes stress that's going on, right? You don't know all the challenges. And so you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's like you get to the point, and I definitely have taken a break from media because it was like, it gets to be sometimes if you're not in a place to navigate your journey at that point, it can be very soul sucking. Right? You can have great moments, but then you can have some really soul sucking days that's not on Instagram. The cute stuff.
Yes.
The cute stuff is on Instagram.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think for media people specifically, it burns you a little bit differently, especially if it's news, because media has a tendency to be sensationalized, depressing. So we're selling topics, we're selling titles, we're selling the juicy stuff. And that compiled on it. I am an activist by nature. I'm very passionate about equity and fighting for the little dog and the underdog, and just the imagery of people of color that's been in the media the last 5 years has been like gut-wrenching and heartbreaking as a person of color. So I'm already navigating through the things that we see or the things that we're choosing to air. Right. That's not always putting us in the best light. Or it's biased even down to that. But if I speak up and say something in the editorial meeting, then again, it's like, it's that, do I say something? Do I not? Is it worth even saying something if I could be replaced. Like, you know,
Yes,
so I
yes.
think, yeah, the media is a double win.
Absolutely. There was, oh, just really quickly, Michelle says that she would tell her younger self that everything is negotiable. We don't know that in the very beginning.
That's true. I love that. I love that.
That's something that you got to learn.
Yeah.
Keisha says she just bought the book and she is looking forward to diving into the pages.
Woo! All
Um,
right, Keisha.
one of the things I think is that we just sometimes we don't have all the information, like, and so we can definitely benefit from mentors. Have you had media mentors or just mentors in general who've helped you through navigate some of the craziness, from whether it was dealing with favoritism? Because I've definitely been up against someone's relative, and it's like, well, why you got me here? Because you know you're going to hire the relative, but you know it's like the process. It's like, well, we got to make it look like we did everything really fair and equitable, but we know we're going to hire so and so's relative, right? Have you had mentors to help you through some of those experiences?
I've had people stashed out here and there, not necessarily mentors in the workplace, and I'm being very careful with this because I don't want to be offensive, but I have always been blessed to have someone to give encouragement. I have had a great community. I have a group, I'm still great friends with them. We call it Cackling Hands. Shout out to my ladies.
The cackling hymns.
Cackling Hands. I talk about communities and tribes. So even if your mentor is not like an older figure, there's still a community member that can just kind of give you encouragement or be that space of release. So I've been fortunate to have people in my corner just kind of rooting for me. So yeah.
Yeah. And another thing too, before we go, about being silent, is that if we don't tell someone else, like even if we're not in the position at the moment to tell a manager, director, or go to HR, you need to be able to have the conversation with someone else so that they can help you figure out what to do. Because if you just sit in silence and you're miserable, you don't realize, hey, I could have gone to HR, I could have sued, like, hello, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna say something.
I see two questions in here, but to your point, here's the interesting thing when I talk about, it's just so valuable when we talk about diversity and inclusion. It's important to have people of color in every position, because if that HR person, not that they have to look like you, but if they do not have a real heart for justice and for equity, then it's less likely, and then they want to protect their jobs too sometimes. They may not go to bat or fight for you. So I absolutely speak about the importance of documentation. Everyone has a boss over their boss. So if you need to take it up to the higher chain, don't be afraid to not do that. If there's something that just doesn't sit right with you, it's really important. But it would be great to have more people that are about the people in HR positions, because sometimes I think that's easy to get lost. If you are going to HR time and time again and then nothing's really shifting, or HR's responsibility is to protect the company, not necessarily the employee,
Exactly.
which makes it kind of difficult.
And I've seen that too. You were saying we have some questions?
Yes. So one question was regarding speaking engagements. What's next? What's next is more promotions. I'll be in Chicago.
Nice.
I haven't publicly said that, but I got some stuff coming up in a couple of weeks. There's a conference here in Atlanta, February 8th, and you can follow my social media for those things. But speaking engagements, absolutely, yes.
Give us, for people who may be on here on Facebook, but they don't follow you on Instagram, give your Instagram handle so they can check.
That's good. It's R Carla Danielle, CarlaDanielle, the letter R Carla Danielle, for the Instagram and for Twitter. And this other question is, a Black woman working in corporate, how would you recommend dealing with feeling less than your colleagues because you don't want to engage after work or during work hours, during your lunch, or being friends on social media?
You address that in the book. Go for it.
I do. And yeah, so that's the give or take with the game, because you want, managers are looking at you being a good culture fit as well, or team members, you want to be inviting, you want to build a great rapport, because you may need your colleagues for something, you know, and it doesn't hurt. But I think your personal space, that is something that you need to protect. You can flat out just say, no, I can't make it. I can't attend. If you don't feel comfortable crossing that line, personal boundaries. And if that's one of your boundary setups, do not cross your boundary, period. But during the work day and your lunch hour, that is your little 1 hour to enjoy yourself or to pull away from work. You don't have to share that. But for the after work things, you know, just kind of use your discretion or go for 30, 15 minutes, just show your face and dip out. Also assess who's there. Am I partying with a purpose? Is there a VP or someone else that works in this department that I'm interested in applying for there that I can actually put a name to a face within that work? So kind of use your best judgment or go for a little bit and dip, or have some cocktails on the way there.
Yeah. No, I think that is absolutely important, because sometimes, like, let's say you're trying to make a move, and if the person, like the VP, the director, they don't know you because you don't come to the social events, then it's like you don't have a case for yourself, because they're like, oh no, Barbara was here, you know, Susan was here,
everything.
But if Taiia didn't go to the party, the happy hour, and show her face and just, you know, just have conversations, natural conversations, and talk about projects, because I don't think we do that enough too. Like, we don't talk about, we don't celebrate ourselves because someone says, oh, you did a great job, and immediately we go, oh, we got lucky that time, or you know, it wasn't a big deal, and you're like, actually was a big goddamn deal. You know?
Yeah, because your bosses may not, and I talk about that too. A lot of women of color, I forget the actual percent, they're not advocated for. We need management and people to that's in those rooms and at the table and in the positions to express, oh, Taiia is really great with marketing. Taiia is a strong presenter.
Right.
They would never know those things. And I encourage you to absolutely pitch your own stuff. If there's something you want to do, point it out, or go to your boss's boss and, hey, did you know I find your own way to do that? But it is important to show your face to an extent. So that's a give or take. That's at your discretion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, answer the last piece about social media. What do you do when you're at the job and people want to file? Why did you not respond to my Facebook request? Why are you, you know, my account was private on Instagram. Why did you not allow me to be friends with you? What do you do?
The audacity. People feel entitled to your life. Like, and I messed up because some people I talk about in the book, they friend me early and was just keeping tabs on things. And not that I post anything like inappropriate, but for the social media thing, you can either find them and block them first.
I love that tip.
Find them and block them first. Maybe put another initial in your name if you don't want them to be able to find you, or make your stuff unsearchable only by your personal email. And then for those that are bold enough to ask, oh, I sent you a request, you didn't. I'll refer them to your LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. My personal social media accounts are my personal social media accounts. And that is a boundary that has to be set up front at the gate. You got to do that up front. Absolutely. So, yeah.
So we have any more questions before we go? We want to make sure you get dinner. We're running late.
I don't see any on this end, just a couple comments. Okay. Yeah, I want to thank everyone that's, you know, I know this is your wrap up, but you can go over to RaquelShelton.com. I got some really cool merchandise on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great t-shirts, great hoodies. I love the stuff. It's so cute. It's adorable. And your branding is excellent. So I want to say thank you to everyone for checking us out tonight for Indie Authors Live. And I have to actually shout out Raquel because she gave me the name for this show because I have been rocking without a name. So thank you so much for that. So please follow Woosah the book on Instagram and follow Raquel. She gave you her Instagram handle, and head over to Amazon.com to purchase Woosah, a survival guide for women of color working in corporate. Thank you for hanging out with us. I am Taiia Smart Young. She is Raquel Shelton, and I will see you guys next month. Take care.